Lily Carter was a 14-year-old girl with soft brown eyes and a wheelchair that had become her legs after a terrible accident 2 years ago. The doctors said she might walk again someday, but until then she rolled through life with bravery that most adults lacked. She always told her mom, "At least my heart still works, but even the strongest hearts can break when the world is unkind." That Saturday afternoon, Lily's mother, Jessica, took her to Miller's Diner, a small place on the outskirts of town where the smell of sweet pancakes mixed with old jukebox music. It was a treat after Lily endured a tough week of physical therapy. She loved the chocolate milkshakes there, the waitress who always remembered her name, and the cozy red booths that made her feel like she belonged somewhere. But belonging was a fragile thing. Across the diner sat a group of 3 teenagers, loud and bored, searching for entertainment. The dangerous kind. They whispered, snickered, and exchanged looks like wolves spotting a wounded animal. Lily noticed but tried to ignore them. She smiled at her mother as the waitress set down her milkshake, pretending the world was still gentle. Then the boys stood up. They swaggered over like they owned the place, smirking down at Lily. One leaned close, invading her space, calling her names she'd heard too many times. Another laughed at her wheelchair, tapping the wheels like they were toys. Lily's mother stood to defend her, voice shaking with both fear and fury, but before she could finish her sentence, one of the boys slapped Lily across the cheek. The diner fell silent. Everyone stared, but no one stood up. Lily's head turned slightly from the force, tears welling as she trembled. Not because of the pain, but the humiliation. Jessica cried out, shielding her daughter as the bullies laughed and swaggered away, proud of the damage they caused. The waitress tried to comfort them, offering to call the police, but Lily begged her mother not to. She didn't want more trouble. She didn't want to be a burden. They stayed, not because they weren't hurt, but because they refused to let cruelty take away a simple Saturday treat. Still, Lily's milkshake no longer tasted sweet. Every minute felt like a reminder of what happened. Minutes passed like hours. Jessica tried everything to lighten the mood. Silly jokes, gentle questions, stories from the past. But Lily kept replaying the slap in her mind. She wondered if those boys were right. Was she broken? Was she someone to be laughed at instead of loved? An hour later, the door swung open with a loud metallic clang. A dozen bikers walked in, leather jackets coated in dust, chains clinking, boots heavy against the tile floor. Their presence filled the diner like a storm rolling through quiet skies. Tattoos crawled up their arms, sunglasses hid their eyes, and their beards told stories of roads long traveled. People stiffened. The waitress swallowed hard. Even the jukebox seemed to shrink inside its shell. The lead biker, a tall man with a flaming skull patch on his jacket, walked straight to the counter. His voice rumbled like thunder as he ordered. The boys who had bullied Lily earlier stared wide-eyed, suddenly less brave, suddenly smaller. They whispered among themselves nervously, unsure whether to stay or run. One of the bikers noticed Lily. He saw the dried tears on her cheeks. He saw the faint red mark where the slap had landed. He saw a girl trying hard to hide her pain, but failing, because pain like that sits right behind the eyes. He leaned down slightly, giving her a soft, surprising smile, the kind that didn't match his intimidating exterior. Then he looked around the room, his gaze sharpening like a blade spotting its target. He saw the bullies. Without a word, he turned to his group and gave a small nod. The bikers exchanged glances, their expressions darkening. Slowly, they spread out across the diner, their boots striking fear into every heartbeat of those 3 boys. The leader stopped right behind the one who slapped Lily. He placed a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder. The teen flinched as cold sweat formed at his hairline. The leader leaned low and began speaking. Calm, low, and firm. No one else could hear the exact words, but from the boy's trembling lips and frantic eyes, it was clear that the message wasn't pleasant. The other 2 boys stood frozen as different bikers approached them, making sure every ounce of false courage drained from their bodies. The leader didn't yell or threaten loudly. He didn't need to. Sometimes silence can teach lessons that shouting never could. After a tense moment, the boys stumbled over themselves to apologize to Lily, real terror turning into real remorse. Their voices cracked as they begged forgiveness, eyes wide with regret. Then they rushed out of the diner and into the cold air, swearing never to return. But it didn't end there. The leader crouched down next to Lily. He introduced himself as Frank, just Frank, and told her something that would stay with her forever. He told her that wheels didn't define her worth, that strength wasn't measured in footsteps but in courage, and that surviving cruelty didn't make her weak, it made her unstoppable. He looked at Jessica and assured her that she wasn't alone. Sometimes strangers step in where others fail. Then, the bikers did something unexpected. They ordered chocolate milkshakes, the same as Lily's, and raised their glasses across the diner in a silent toast to her bravery. Lily smiled, a real smile this time, the kind that flickers like a candle relighting after a gust of wind. The diners who had watched quietly earlier now approached, offering apologies for not stepping up when they should have. They praised Lily's bravery. They thanked Frank and his group for reminding everyone that good still existed in the world, even if sometimes it rode in on two roaring wheels. Frank went to pay the bill for Lily and her mother, but the waitress told him it had already been covered by a couple seated in the corner who had been too scared to act earlier, but wanted to show kindness now. Compassion spread like wildfire, melting the silence that had once felt so heavy. Lily looked around and realized something life-changing. Cruelty may strike suddenly, but kindness can rise stronger. The bikers stayed a while, telling Lily stories about journeys across states, sunsets over highways, and the freedom of the open road. They promised that if she ever wanted to ride, they'd attach her wheelchair to a sidecar and take her flying across the wind. For the first time in months, Lily believed that the world still held adventures, just waiting for her to reach them. Eventually, it was time for the bikers to leave. Frank bent down and gave Lily a gentle fist bump, calling her the bravest girl he'd ever met. As they walked out, the diner felt brighter, lighter, transformed by their spirit. Lily watched through the window as the motorcycles rumbled away, engines roaring like victorious lions. Her heart felt stronger, her courage returned. She looked up at her mom and said she wanted to try standing again during therapy, because she wanted to be able to walk beside those bikers someday. Jessica hugged her tightly, tears of pride filling her eyes. She whispered that no matter how long it took, she would be right there with her, cheering her on. The memory of the slap began to fade, replaced by the memory of an army of protectors who had shown her that heroes come in leather jackets and ride with fierce hearts. Sometimes life knocks you down, but sometimes life sends bikers to lift you back up. The world outside remained the same, noisy, unpredictable, sometimes cruel, but Lily now knew she could face it, because she had discovered that one moment of kindness could rewrite an entire day, and maybe an entire life. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like the video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe so we can continue spreading positivity and hope. Before you scroll, leave a comment. What would you have done if you were in that diner? Lily's journey reminds us all, strength isn't in the legs that walk, but in the heart that rises no matter how many times it's knocked down. And as long as there are people willing to stand up for others, the world will never lose its light.